The Challenger tank was designed to respond to the challenges of the Cold War and the threat of a Soviet invasion of Europe. When the Soviet T-72 tank went into service in the 1970s, the British military realised that it had a greater effective range than their current offering, the Chieftain. Soviet military technology was quickly catching up, and the government was concerned about what was coming next if they didn't update their aging tanks. The British and German militaries decided to work together to design what they called the Future Main Battle Tank, which would incorporate new technologies and ideas to create a tank that could compete with the new Soviet designs. After years of research, however, the German military eventually decided to go for a different design, the Leopard 2, and the British were still stuck with the Chieftain, fast becoming outdated. A new project called MBT-80 looked into the creation of a new British tank, but it was actually Iran that would ultimately be the source of the Challenger. In the 1970s, the Shah of Iran, a close ally of Britain and an important customer to the British military industry, placed an order for thousands of Chieftain tanks with some new adaptations. The Sher 2 tank, which Iran ordered 1,250 of, had the Chieftain gun with some new fire control systems, a new Rolls-Royce engine, the latest hydro-pneumatic technology suspension, and state-of-the-art Chobham armour. In 1979, the Shah of Iran was deposed, and the project supplying the Sher 1 and Sher 2 tanks was scuppered. Having prepared the manufacturing of thousands of Sher 2 tanks, the British Army decided to develop this design further and make it the replacement for the Chieftain instead of MBT-80. The new tank, which first entered service in 1983 at a cost of around £2 million each, was the Challenger 1. The Challenger 1 was a huge step up from the Chieftain, but still wasn't able to compete with the newest tanks produced by other NATO countries. At the Canadian Army Trophy competition in 1987, the 3 British platoons, all using the Challenger 1 tank, placed in the bottom 3. The British government immediately ordered research into an improvement, the end product being the Challenger 2, which first entered service in 1998. The Challenger 2 is a third generation main battle tank, the same generation as the Russian T-90, German Leopard 2 and US M1 Abrams. The British Army currently has 383 Challenger 2 tanks in its arsenal. Specifications. Protection. The Challenger 2 improved the hull of the Challenger 1 using the latest generation of top-secret Chobham armour, known as Dorchester armour. It is a heavily armoured and well-protected tank, able to use slat armour and reactive armour additions to defend against specific targets. Typically, before being sent in operations, the tank will be modified with these additional armour elements depending on the type of threat it is likely to face. It is protected against nuclear, biological and chemical weapons thanks to its NBC protection system, interior sealing, pressurization and its filter ventilator unit. Its shape is designed to minimize its radar signature, and it's capable of launching smoke grenades in 8 directions around it to enable it to hide and escape a dangerous situation, as well as producing smoke directly from the exhaust to obscure it as it moves. If there's one thing the Challenger 2 is known for, it's the high levels of protection and armour it offers its crew. Armament. The Challenger 2 is equipped with a 120mm 55 caliber L30A1 tank gun, made from high-strength electroslag remelted steel with a chromium alloy lining which protects the barrel from damage by the rounds it fires. It is thermally insulated to protect it from warping, and it is controlled by an electronic stabilization system that keeps the gun steady in rough terrain at high speeds. The turret can rotate through 360 degrees in just 12 seconds, enabling the Challenger 2 to quickly engage snap targets. The gun is rifled and capable of firing high explosive squash head rounds, HESH, and armor piercing fin stabilized discarding sabot rounds, APF-SDSR. More about the different types of tank projectile in maybe another video. The Challenger 2's main gun claims the longest distance tank kill in history when a Challenger 1 tank defeated an Iraqi tank in the First Gulf War from over 4 kilometers away, just about the distance from Snaresbrook Station to Westfield in Stratford. It has a laser rangefinder system and electronic targeting systems, as well as its own atmospheric measuring system so the computer can quickly calculate range and atmospheric conditions. It also has a coaxial machine gun that fires 7.62mm rounds at soft targets. Arguably the most important part of the Challenger 2 tank is the Advanced Battlefield Management and Weapons Integration System, which allows for hunter-killer operations. What does this mean? It means that instead of the sight being slave to the main armament is slave to the sight. So instead of having, as you normally have in a tank turret, the sight being attached to the main gun and therefore you use both to aim, the Challenger 2 does things the other way around, where you can sight targets, then the gun snaps to where the target is. The advantage of that is that the commander of tank becomes a more effective hunter, using his panoramic gyrostabilized thermal sights to identify targets, then, at the click of a button, snap the main gun to that target, with the computer having already calculated the range and firing projection. This drastically reduces the engagement time. From identifying a target to firing upon it takes half the amount of time in the Challenger 2 as it did in the Chieftain. The commander can also queue multiple targets at once, and combining this with its fast traverse and quick reload time, the Challenger 2 is capable of engaging multiple targets quickly and accurately. The Challenger 2 uses a CV12 Rolls-Royce turbocharged engine. Officially it can go up to 60 km/h, but in reality it's more like 80 km/h. It has 8 fuel tanks which altogether carry around 1500 litres under the armour and 800 litres attached to barrels outside. With all fuel tanks full, barrels and base armour, the Challenger 2 can travel up to 550 km in total, roughly the distance from Snaresbrook Station to the Scottish border, without needing to refuel. Thanks to the simplicity of the design, a damaged or broken engine can be swapped for a new one in just under 90 minutes, a vast improvement on the Chieftain which took 8 hours to change. It has an inbuilt fire suppression and extinguishing system, and all systems are designed to be easily accessed and replaceable in a short amount of time, meaning maintenance is much more simple. The hydropneumatic suspension of the tank makes it a very stable platform and much more comfortable ride. Adding to the comfort is an inbuilt air conditioning system and, of course, tea making facilities. Personnel. The Challenger 2 is operated by 4 people: the commander, the gunner, the operator and the driver. The commander's job is to be in ultimate control of the tank, making tactical decisions about the tank's position and targeting. The commander also identifies targets using their extensive thermal and optic sights, by which they are helped by the gunner, whose role is to operate the main gun and its coaxial machine gun. The operator assists the gunner with the loading and the operating of the main gun, as well as having their own mounted machine gun to operate, or, in more recent upgrades, manning a remote-controlled gun turret of their own. The driver's job, naturally, is to drive the tank. Use. The Challenger 2 was first used in peacekeeping efforts in the Balkans, serving as a deterrent and never firing a round in anger. Its first combat use came in March 2003 during Operation Telek, the invasion of Iraq, with the 7th Armoured Brigade using 120 Challenger 2s in the British siege of Basra. Engaging outdated Iraqi T-54s and T-55s, the Challenger 2 suffered no tank losses to Iraqi fire, though one was later penetrated by an IED, wounding the driver. One incident demonstrates just how survivable the Challenger 2 tank is. Operating in the town of Ibrahim, 15 km south of Basra, a Challenger 2 manned by the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards came under attack by irregular Fedayeen forces with machine guns and RPGs. The sights and tracks were damaged when the vehicle was hit by a Milan anti-tank missile, and the tank ended up in a ditch before being hit by more than 14 RPGs from close range, as well as small arms fire from AK-47s and machine guns. The crew survived. The tank was back in operation just 6 hours later. In fact, only one Challenger 2 has ever been destroyed in combat. On the 25th of March 2003, a Challenger 2 of the Queen's Royal Lancers was destroyed whilst operating outside of Basra, when a Hesh round hit the commander's hatch, killing 2 members inside and exploding the tank's ammunition, destroying the tank. The Hesh round in question had been fired by none other than another Challenger 2, which had mistaken the tank for an enemy vehicle. It remains the Challenger 2's only combat loss. Upgrades. The Challenger 2 has undergone a number of upgrades already, with more planned in the future. The Challenger 2 Life Extension Program, LEP, is designed to extend the life of the Challenger 2 by 10 years to 2035. In October 2018, BAE Systems unveiled its proposed Challenger 2 LEP prototype, nicknamed the Black Knight. The latest Challenger 2 model, the Black Knight, contains the following upgrades: a revamp of the electronics and computing systems to the latest computing technology, new sighting systems with improved night imaging, active protection systems to destroy incoming projectiles and alert the crew if the tank is being laser targeted, automated target tracking and new thermal imaging systems, and redesigned crew stations and controls to better improve the tank's operability. All in all, the Challenger 2, whilst not the best main battle tank in the world right now, is a more than capable piece of equipment that has been effective in its operational engagement so far, and hopefully will be in the future. Its original purpose, to counter the advancements of the Soviet military during the Cold War, is not as relevant now as it was then. But with increasing Russian aggression in Eastern Europe and recent NATO deployments in Estonia, it just may be that tanks come under the spotlight once more. And that, in a nutshell, is the Challenger 2.